Victoria Bennett had built her educational technology company from the ground up, transforming it into one of the most innovative firms in the industry. At 32, she was known for her sharp business instincts and demanding standards. Her company provided digital learning solutions to schools across the country, but she rarely visited the classrooms where her products were actually used. Tonight was different. She had stayed late at Lincoln Elementary School, observing how teachers integrated her company's software into their lesson plans. The visit was part of a new initiative to better understand their end users. But as evening fell, Victoria found herself alone in the hallways that still buzzed with the energy of children's learning. As she prepared to leave, she noticed a light still on in one of the classrooms. Through the doorway, she could see a man in his early 30s teaching a small group of students. But something was unusual about the scene. The man wore the gray uniform of the school's maintenance staff, not the typical attire of a teacher. Curious, Victoria moved closer to observe. The man stood at the whiteboard explaining math concepts with patience and clarity. The students, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, listened intently as he broke down complex problems into manageable steps. Behind him, a banner read, "You belong here," in colorful letters. "Now who can tell me what we do next?" the man asked, his voice warm and encouraging. A young girl raised her hand eagerly. "We multiply both sides by 3? "Exactly right, Maria. You're really getting this." Victoria watched, fascinated, as the man continued the lesson. His teaching style was natural and engaging, and it was clear the students respected and trusted him. But what was a janitor doing teaching children after hours? When the impromptu class ended and the students began packing up their belongings, Victoria retreated to a spot where she could observe without being seen. She watched as the man, whose name tag read David Martinez, helped each child gather their books and papers. "Remember," he told them as they prepared to leave, "tomorrow we'll work on those word problems. Don't worry if they seem hard at first. Everything worth learning takes practice." The children thanked him enthusiastically before heading toward the school's main exit where, Victoria assumed, their parents were waiting. But David didn't leave. Instead, he began his evening custodial duties, methodically cleaning classrooms and preparing the school for the next day. Intrigued and somewhat puzzled, Victoria decided to stay and observe further. As David worked, she noticed something remarkable about his approach. In each classroom, he took time to organize the students' work displays with care, ensuring that every child's effort was showcased proudly. He straightened books, arranged supplies, and even took a moment to water the plants that various classes had been growing as science projects. When David finished his shift around 9 o'clock, Victoria made an impulsive decision. She followed him at a distance as he left the school, curious about the man who seemed to care so deeply about the educational environment he maintained. David walked to a nearby bus stop, and Victoria discreetly followed in her car as the bus took him to a modest neighborhood across town. She watched as he got off at an apartment complex and climbed the stairs to a second-floor unit. Victoria sat in her car for a moment, wrestling with her conscience. What she was doing felt intrusive, but something about David's dedication to those students had captured her attention in a way that business meetings and profit margins never had. The next morning, Victoria arrived at her office with David Martinez on her mind. She instructed her assistant to research his background, claiming it was for a potential employee recognition program. What she learned surprised her. David had been working as a custodian at Lincoln Elementary for 3 years. Before that, he had been a mathematics teacher at a private school, but had left that position suddenly. The school's principal, when contacted, spoke highly of David's character and work ethic, but was vague about the details of his employment history. Determined to understand more, Victoria decided to visit Lincoln Elementary again that evening. This time she arrived just as David's after-hours tutoring session was beginning. She approached the classroom doorway and knocked gently. David looked up, clearly surprised to see a professionally dressed woman he didn't recognize. "Can I help you? The school is officially closed for the day. I'm Victoria Bennett. My company provides the educational software used here. I was observing how it's being implemented and couldn't help but notice your tutoring session yesterday." David's expression became guarded. Is there a problem? I have permission from the principal to use the classroom after hours. These kids need extra help and their families can't afford private tutoring. There's no problem, Victoria assured him quickly. I'm just curious, you're obviously a skilled teacher. What led you to work in maintenance instead of education? David was quiet for a long moment, clearly debating whether to trust this stranger with his story. Finally, he gestured for Victoria to step into the hallway where they could speak privately. I was a teacher, he said simply. A good one, I thought. But 3 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with leukemia. Her treatment was expensive and our insurance had limitations. I needed a job with better benefits and the flexibility to care for her. Victoria felt her chest tighten. I'm sorry, is she? She passed away 18 months ago, David said, quietly. By then, I had been out of teaching for so long that finding a position was difficult. Schools prefer teachers with recent classroom experience, and honestly, I needed time to grieve. But you continued tutoring these children? David's expression softened. These kids reminded me why I became a teacher in the first place. Many of them come from single-parent homes or families where the parents work multiple jobs. They're falling behind not because they lack ability, but because they lack support. Victoria looked back into the classroom where several children were already seated, waiting patiently for their lesson to begin. Their families know about this arrangement? Of course. I met with each parent personally. Some of them try to pay me, but I won't accept money. These kids just need someone to believe in them. Victoria felt something shift inside her chest, a recognition of purpose that went beyond profit margins and market share. David, would you be interested in returning to teaching full-time? David's expression became wary. I appreciate the thought, but as I mentioned, finding a teaching position after being out of the classroom isn't simple. What if it could be? Victoria asked. What if there was a way to combine your teaching skills with educational technology in a way that could help even more children? Over the following weeks, Victoria found herself returning to Lincoln Elementary regularly. She observed David's teaching methods, noting how he adapted complex concepts for different learning styles and how he used encouragement to build confidence in struggling students. She also learned more about his background. David had a master's degree in mathematics education and had been pursuing his doctorate when his wife became ill. His former students had consistently scored among the highest in the district on standardized tests. An idea began forming in Victoria's mind, one that excited her more than any business venture she had ever considered. 6 months later, Victoria stood before the board of directors of her company, presenting a proposal that would fundamentally change their business model. Educational technology is only as effective as the people who implement it, she explained. I'm proposing we establish our own learning centers, staffed by exceptional teachers who understand both pedagogy and technology. The first center would be piloted in partnership with the school district, providing after-school and summer programs for students who needed additional support. David Martinez had agreed to serve as the director of curriculum development, designing programs that combined traditional teaching methods with innovative technology. On opening day, Victoria watched through the window as David worked with a group of students, the same patience and care evident in his approach. But now he had resources, support, and the recognition he deserved. Ms. Bennett? One of the students approached her. It was Maria, the girl who had answered the math question correctly that first night Victoria had observed David's class. Yes, sweetheart? Mr. Martinez says you're the reason he gets to be a real teacher again. Thank you for helping him help us. Victoria knelt down to Maria's eye level. Actually, Mr. Martinez helped me understand something important. Sometimes the most valuable people are the ones working quietly behind the scenes, making sure everyone else can succeed. As Victoria watched David continue his lesson, she reflected on how following her curiosity about one dedicated individual had led to the most meaningful work of her career. She had started as a CEO focused on profits and ended up discovering that the greatest return on investment came from investing in people who cared deeply about making a difference. The after-hours discovery had changed everything, not just for David and his students, but for Victoria herself. She had learned that true leadership isn't just about building successful companies, but about recognizing and nurturing the quiet heroes who make success possible for others.